graphic designer, illustrator, freelance artist. He is one of my oldest friends. We used to play music together. That's pretty cool, right? Yeah, that's pretty cool. He's going to talk to you guys about what it's like to have a career in making art for himself and other people and the different avenues that he took, because everybody takes a different avenue, right? And he's going to give you just some background on what he's done in his career and what that might look like for you guys. Does that sound good? Awesome.
Okay, so just to give you a little background on myself, I'm from Orange County, California. I grew up in Santa Ana. Just like as far as I can remember, I was always interested in cartoons, art, packaging, things like that. Some of the stuff I kind of have pointed out here, like I got a skateboard for Christmas when I was 5 years old. I loved old Disney cartoons like Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. I'm sure like a lot of the stuff you guys are into or were into. Uh, Here's me with blue hair as a middle schooler. Yeah, so I grew up skateboarding, and something about the art always kind of appealed to me, along with at the same time I discovered skateboarding, I kind of discovered punk music and ska. And I don't know if you guys even know what ska is, but there was this band called the Aquabats, and they had this really silly aesthetic. They had like this weird kind of 1960s looking like hot rod style in some ways, but also like they were goofy superheroes. And as a like 8 year old kid, that completely like changed my life and what I thought like art was. I always knew like kind of the masters, and I'm sure things you've learned about in school. And when I kind of saw this outsider art, it really changed my perspective. And the same thing happened with skateboarding. So like, I don't know if you guys get CCS catalogs. I don't know if they still send physical catalogs, but there was this catalog called the CCS catalog. It was like cheap California cheapskates is what it stood for, but it was like a mail order skateboarding catalog. You had to use, like, you used to have to buy things through catalogs by mail before the internet. So they would send these catalogs, and these catalogs had like every single skateboard company's skateboard decks, like every single t-shirt you could possibly think of from like every skateboard brand. So from there, I was kind of able to navigate like what I liked and what appealed to me. I think like the biggest influence for me was the brand Toy Machine. It's still a brand that's around. I don't know if anybody here skateboards or not, but it's a pretty well established brand by an artist named Ed Templeton. He's an artist and skateboarder. Another one is called Freedom. They were just really stupid graphics, really silly stuff. And it was just very cartoony and like things I never knew could appeal to like adults, or like adults could find that stuff interesting. I thought like once you grow up, like cartoons are done and like you move on, you work at a bank or something like that. So from there, I kind of started playing music. I joined a band in high school. This was like this is actually the CD case over here. I don't know if you guys know what CDs are or not, but the CD case here is like the first piece of graphic design I ever technically did. I did it in Photoshop. Back then, I got Photoshop from my friend's mom who had like a pirated CD version. So I was able to kind of teach myself Photoshop. There was a kid I knew who knew how to do Photoshop well. So he like came over a couple times and kind of showed me some tips and tricks. And from there, I've been doing Photoshop since I was 14, which I'm sure like you guys are so lucky you get to do that in school. Like that was never an option for me in school. Digital art wasn't really like a thing anybody, I don't think, like thought about or considered to teach in school then. So, I mean, like you guys have a real good advantage if you're interested in doing this kind of thing for a career. Like you guys are super lucky. Like you can learn this stuff now, and I don't want to say you don't have to go to college, but like you will have an advantage over other people. Like you could probably, if you wanted to, get a job right out of high school doing something, or like starting at a very low level somewhere. So I kind of got interested in graphic design after doing that, and like having to make flyers and things like that for my band. I started doing it for other people's bands, and they would pay me. And then I started doing it for a clothing store. So my friend's mom owned a clothing store, which I ended up working at and like being a buyer for. But it was kind of like a local hot topic, like skate shop kind of mixed up thing. It was like they sold band merch, they sold Dickies, they sold some skateboarding stuff. And from there, I kind of just like got more and more interested with apparel graphics and screen printing, because I was designing like some t-shirts that were sold in the store. So from there, this is going to look very silly and dated, but I ended up really liking screen printing. I met some kids who had their own like little t-shirt line, and I just started asking them like every question I could. I met these kids through going to like punk shows in Orange County. I lived in Riverside at the time. And so I was meeting these kids. They had their own little thing going, and I was like, hey dude, can I, is there any way I can help? I want to be a part of this. So what ended up happening was like, they needed somebody that could screen print for them. So I ended up getting a loan from my grandma. I bought screen printing equipment, and I just kind of taught myself how to screen print with a lot of trial and error, which I think, I don't know if they offer this at your school or not, but that's something like they also didn't offer at my high school. Like I knew kids in other high schools who were able to screen print, and like, that's so awesome that that's a resource. But for me, it wasn't. So I just kind of had to do what I could to learn this stuff on my own. I got a loan from my grandma because I had a job. I bought screen printing equipment, and then I just immediately started learning how to do it and screen printing for them. And then eventually I joined in their company, and then I kind of just took it all over. And so, yeah, here's me and my goofy friends. This is like stuff I graphic designed when I was like probably 16 years old. Some of it still, I'm honestly surprised it kind of like isn't that bad, or like that. I don't wince that much when I see it, but it's very dated looking for sure. So yeah, I was doing all of this. And at the time, I also started screen printing for just like other little clothing brands and companies, and like different bands and things like that. People I knew would need screen printing, so I just started doing it. I had a little screen printing shop in my parents' garage, basically. And so I had some issues with like the person who was partnered with me in my clothing line. We were selling in stores and stuff at that time, not like huge stores, but just some like small boutiques. We ended up, so what ended up happening was he stole a bunch of money, which is what people do when they're young and dumb. And so I ended up kind of folding the clothing company, but I still had the screen printing business. I kind of was trying to finish school and everything, so I kind of paused from doing that. And so once I was finished with school, I would still screen print on occasion, but I wasn't pushing it as much. I ended up getting a job with my dad, which like my dad's an industrial mechanic. So I was doing like, I was driving a forklift and like cleaning out these like power generators. I would have to change oil on them and like pull dead rats out. I was on the dirt like 9 to 10 hours a day in the heat, and it was just miserable. So like I made a lot of money, but I would always just like every weekend I would take my entire paycheck and go to Art Supply Warehouse over here in Seal Beach and just blow all my money. There was an artist who, like, you could see this painting in the middle over here. His name is Jeff Soto. He's from Riverside, which is where I was living at the time. And he was like, he had a blog, and I would read his blog every day. And I wanted to do fine art because like my interest in graphic design and things like that expanded out into fine art. And so I would do that every day. I hated my job. I was completely miserable, just being right out of high school. So I ended up uh, just thinking like, oh, I need to do something. To go back into high school real quick, I was a pretty bad student, like terrible student. I graduated from high school like late in summer school. So I wasn't bad at school or anything like that, but it just didn't really work for me. Like I knew I wanted to screen print, I wanted to have a job, I wanted flexibility. I will tell you this, like if that's really like if you guys feel like you want to drop out of high school or something like that, it's important to finish for sure. Like your life's only going to get harder from there if you don't. Like there's a lot of struggles and things like that that come with it that I've seen a lot of friends go through that were like really cool creative people that like just things didn't work out for them because they didn't take that stuff too seriously. But like what I want to tell you guys too is there's alternative situations out there. So what I did, because like you had to have a certain grade point average to be able to work, I liked working. So I eventually got to a place in high school in like my junior year where I had like a point 0.1 GPA. And it was just because I didn't want to go to school. Like I could go to school, I could do the work, I could do the test and do fine. But like I wasn't doing homework, I wasn't doing any of that stuff. I just wanted to do the things I was obsessed with, which was like screen print, make art, play music, and like that was it, and skateboard. And I ended up kind of I'm laughing now because all these kids are doing or like doing school on Zoom, and that's like sort of what it was at the time. Like I found this program that was you were kind of able to make up credits and things like that. So you just had to log in every day, and you would have like a teacher talk to you. It's basically like a Zoom school, like school on Zoom before that was ever a thing. So I was able to do that, and then I could go back my senior year, and then I realized like I didn't want to be at school. So I was able to find an independent studies program and then just do that. So I was able to like work and do school at my own leisure. And like I would stay up at late hours. I was a night owl. So I'd always be up till like 3 or 4 in the morning, like doing things on Photoshop, making t-shirts and stuff like that. And then I would have to get up at 6 to go to school. And that like, I don't know, that just didn't work for me. So I found that program and was able to graduate with like a 4.2 GPA. And it worked in my favor. So like high school is great. It's very social. I kind of had my own social network outside of that. So like it worked for me, but like if you can just stay in school. I know it can be hard sometimes, but just get through it and then you can do other things. All right. So after kind of working with my dad, just being completely miserable, I was like, okay, I have to like work in an office. This is terrible. Like I didn't have enough business screen printing to do that for a living yet. And I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to do that because I was more interested in like the creative aspects than the technical aspects of things. So from there, I decided to go to the Art Institute, which is a trade school. And I don't even know if it exists anymore. They got in trouble for like predatory lending and stuff like that. But yeah, so I worked there and I had to move out to Orange County. So I basically slept on my grandma's floor like 5 nights a week while I was in school. And then I would go home to my parents' house on the weekends. And so while I was at school, I kind of made a decision. And this is something I want to talk to you about too. Is like, I got a job that I knew I wouldn't like and wouldn't pay me well because I know I didn't want to do that forever. And I didn't want to get to a place where you feel stuck or like you live outside your means and you kind of have to do something like that to just get by. So I went to the Art Institute. I don't think you need to do that, honestly. I think you guys should really, if you can, there's nothing wrong with community college. Go to community college, you will save a ton of money. The reason I went to Art Institute is because of how focused and fast the program is. So it was like, I only went for 2 years to get an associate's degree. I talked to a handful of teachers and they were like, I don't think you need more than that if you can get work experience. So it saved me like $50,000 in loans. Um, and that's another thing I want. If like there's one thing you guys take away from this, it's the term financial aid when you're signing up for schools. Financial aid can mean what it means. Like, I mean, it can mean scholarships and grants and things like that. But majority of the time, financial aid means loans. So these people were just very predatory, just signing up anybody saying, no, it's cool. You'll like, don't worry about that number. Like you'll have financial aid. And you're like, oh, cool. Yeah. Financial aid. That's going to take care of me. But what it is a loan that you have to pay back. Like, I think even after you're dead. So if you can avoid that, like, dude, go to community college. There's plenty of certificate programs. Like I'd go that route. Like, I don't think they had that as much at the time when I was trying to go to school. And I wanted a program that was solely focused on art just because I knew I would lose interest otherwise, like having to do like your typical, I forget what they call it when you get your associates, but like just kind of like general ed. And also, every class I had at the Art Institute, like the curriculum was essentially these things called Photoshop in a book. There's like Photoshop classroom in a book, Illustrator classroom in a book. There are these books you can get for like $50, but it's basically what the entire curriculum of that school was, like minus a couple things. Like, so I was at my girlfriend's house and she had that book and I started looking through it and I was just like, oh wait, this is like what I'm paying thousands of dollars for. I could have just learned Photoshop through this book. And you guys have YouTube as a resource now. So like that's also something where you can learn a lot for free, which wasn't so much the case at the time. Having done everything, like, everything worked out for me. So it's fine. But I would tell you guys just that's something to be cautious of. And if you can, just go to community college. Like there's nothing wrong with it. A lot of the teachers I had also taught in community college. So like I could have literally driven like 3 miles down the street and got the same exact education for thousands of dollars less. So just keep that into consideration when like if you're thinking about trade school or art school or something like that. At this time, I was also, just doing sketchbook stuff, kind of exploring art galleries and things like that, and just trying to soak up as much of this stuff as I could. I was very, very driven and like focused when I was in school. So like I didn't have, honestly, like I didn't really hang out with friends. I didn't do much. Like I would go to school. I put all my efforts into school and I would go to work and like I would hate work, but it made me like want to get out of there as fast as I could. Like, so I don't know, working at Hot Topic was like the weirdest experience for me. Like I didn't want to work there. I wanted to work somewhere like a skate shop or like a record shop, but like no one was hiring. So that's just where I ended up, but I was happy about it. Like, I know like a lot of my friends and people in school were all like waiting tables and bartending and things like that. And, I noticed the trend where like people would get very comfortable in like with the money they were making or like, like partying and things like that. And like, they would just kind of lose focus and quit school. So it's like, you wouldn't finish, like all these people would make a good enough living. Like, yeah, like, dude, I'm making more now than I would if I was like a junior, like designer. And I always thought like, yeah, dude, but like you'll eventually move up, like you're not going to kind of be stuck in like a situation that a lot of these people were stuck in, which is like, I have this job that pays well. I don't know if I want to do this other job that doesn't pay so well. So like, I'm doing fine. I'm going to quit school or whatever. Like they stopped going to school. And then like, it just didn't make sense to me to quit school, but also be like thousands of dollars in debt. So I was just hyper focused. I really paid attention and like was receptive. I was very immersed in school. Like it was pretty much the only thing I thought about Uh, and so I was really stoked. I was kind of in a good place. I was doing really well in school. I decided, yeah, to get an associate's degree and not a bachelor's. I mean, like, it didn't really make sense, especially with the curriculum of the school. Like, I don't need to take like a 10th typography class, which is like, it just doesn't make sense. So from there, I got all ready to graduate and everything. At the time, also, like, I was working at Hot Topic. I got offered a job doing web design. So I was doing like these terrible web designs for like these really sketchy loan companies and things like that. But I was making a decent living, and I kind of got, I was like promised a job and stuff like that out of school. What ended up happening is the company moved and they fired me a week later. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'm graduating school, so it doesn't really matter. And then like a financial crisis hit in 2008 when I was ready to graduate, and there was like a huge economic downturn. So what I did was I was like, okay, cool. Now no one's hiring. Like every skate brand, or like pretty much every brand that I wanted to work for, fired everybody. So like I was really hoping to get a job at like Volcom or Quicksilver, something like that. That's part of the reason why I went to school in Orange County, was because all like the skate and surf companies are based there. And so I was like, okay, cool. Well, now like no one's hiring. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to try and freelance and get a job that I hate again. So like I'm not stuck doing something I don't want to be doing. So I went back to Hot Topic and worked there for a while, and eventually started freelancing. I was doing these like terrible designs. I think they're terrible. These like terrible 10 colored screen print designs for all these like metal bands that I hated. And at the time, I don't know if you could see, there's like a little skull there, but I was using the name Fun for All Kids for some reason. I just like thought it was the dumbest thing I could name something, so I called it that. And yeah, so I started working with all these metal bands. Basically, like the stuff I was like putting away and stocking T-shirts that I designed in Hot Topic, which was like weird. So it was like I was making money getting paid from these bands, but like I also couldn't afford to not work there at the time. And so yeah, from there I was able to kind of, I signed up with an agency. I don't know, there's like a lot of agencies that will connect you with freelance work. Some of them are kind of sketchy. They'll like, they take a big cut out of what you're paid. So like you're like, a company will pay you kind of double, but you're only getting half, and the agency takes half. But it was way better money than I was making. So I quit my job and just started doing that. I was making enough to get by. I ended up getting a job at a freelance job at this agency that was working with like Wendy's and Taco Bell, and they were doing kids stuff, and they like needed an illustrator, which I like wanted to be more in illustration than like doing Photoshop stuff at the time, or like just regular graphic design. So the first project I had from them was these little characters. They're called school blocks. They were like in a Taco Bell kids meal. I don't know if some of you guys may have like played with them or something when you were kids. I think they still had it then. But yeah, so I got this job. I kind of killed it, and then they kept calling me back. So eventually, like I was going in there every day. That's me on a skateboard toy for Taco Bell. They didn't have they didn't want to pay for models, so they just took pictures of employees in the office. But yeah, so I was doing that, and then they ended up hiring me full time. So I was like, okay, well, like no one's hiring. This is like the best it's going to get for me at this point in life. So I'm just going to do this. So I started doing that. I started illustrating. We were working with like Wendy's, with Taco Bell, Lowe's. I didn't personally work with Chick-fil-A, but somebody like that was one of their clients. worked with like Chuck E. Cheese, and so we would do toys and stuff for them, but also like marketing. So like I was kind of split between like working on some toy stuff and then like marketing. So that job was cool. It was fun, but eventually like the repetition of it just started to drive me insane. And like I don't know, it was weird. I was driving like 100 and something miles a day because I was still living like with my parents at the time. That's another thing. Like spend like as little money as possible. Like if just in life anyway, but like be kind of frugal. Like a lot of my friends and things like that had apartments and stuff, which was like cool. But I again, like I was saying, like I wanted to be able to do what I wanted to do and not be stuck in a pattern where I'm trying to like constantly pay rent and things like that. So I just lived at home as long as I possibly could, just to like avoid that and like so I could kind of pursue my dreams. So while I was at work, it got to a point where I just started like making all these doodles. I would just draw on post-its all day and just make these like silly cartoons and like talk about how I hated my job and stuff. And so I was doing that. I started making these zines with just these like doodles I was doing. It was just all stuff that was like in my sketchbook. And I started kind of putting it on Tumblr. And then I needed a new name because the old name I thought was like tiresome. I didn't want to use that anymore. So there was this band called Terminal Cheesecake, and I thought it was like funny for some reason. So I just called myself Terminal Radness, or I called the blog I made Terminal Radness, and I would just post pictures of like these little doodles I would do at work. Eventually, people kind of started to notice, and like I was kind of building up a following on Tumblr. And I went to Comic Con one year. I used to go for work a lot, and I met this dude, Scrappers. His name is Justin Morrison. He's like a really kind of like prolific and like really established guy. He lives in Portland, but he's like an art director. He works with this like insane agency out there that's really like experimental and pushes boundaries. I met him and talked to him and was just kind of telling him my situation. And I just kind of showed him my sketchbook, and he was like, "Oh, dude, all this stuff is really cool. Like, I really like all of this." And I was like, "Oh, really? Like, these are just like bad sketches that take me like 2 minutes to draw." And he's like, "No, dude, this is great. This is like better than the stuff you're trying at." And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Okay, cool. That's easy for me." So I talked with him. We ended up becoming friends, and I just like connected with him, and he got my information, and then he ended up hitting me up. He was an art director for a publication called the Portland Mercury at the time. And so they need like spot illustrations for their magazine. And so he would like hit me up every week or two, and I started doing these like editorial illustrations. Like this is one of them with a cop trying to stop cops from using tasers. I think was the story. And then another thing I did was I was just really miserable in my job. Like it wasn't creatively fulfilling anymore. I feel like I did everything I could with it, and I was just miserable. So I made this thing, and I was just trying to like figure out like who's the closest person to where I am now. I was working in like Costa Mesa at the time, and Volcom was down the street. So I was like, okay, I'm going to send something to Volcom and like try and work with them. So I made this little thing at work on their time, and with their copier, and it just said, "I want to be your dog," and it had a little dog like thinking about Volcom. And then another illustration, I think, and a letter just saying like, "Hey, like I'm so miserable at my job, like I will go like work in your mailroom or like clean toilets or something like that. I just like I'm sick of being here. It's not a like creative environment." And so the creative director, it was addressed to the creative director. I like stalked him on LinkedIn and found out who their creative director was, and then just mailed a package to him, which is like something all of you could do right now, and you should. Like people don't get mail anymore, and they like it when they do. So if you find like if you want to work with somebody, or like you feel like you can do that, like there's no reason you can't. So just like meeting Justin or Scrappers just after talking with him, he just made everything seem like, oh, like it's not a big deal or it's not hard to do or like my goals were very achievable. He's like, oh yeah, like you want to work with this band, just like send them stuff, like send stuff to them, like talk to them, like I'm sure they'll work with you, like your stuff is good. I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, I just started doing that. I started sending stuff to Vans and whoever I could just to like get on somebody's radar over there that wasn't in a way that was like, hey, I'm bugging you on Instagram or like I'm trying to like slide in people's DMs. Like I think that can turn people off or like rub them the wrong way. So it's like it's better to do something that's weird and creative than to like just do something that's annoying. So I sent that to Volcom, and then the creative director got back to me like a week later, and he was just like, dude, I love everything you're doing. I love your stuff. We don't have any open positions right now, but I want to work with you. Like, let's get some of your stuff in our lineup for like fall. And I was like, dude, yeah, that would be awesome. So this like shirt over here on the left is the basically one of the drawings that I sent the guy, and it's like a Yeti or something like that. I forget what, like a Bigfoot drawing I did. So that ended up being in like their fall line with like something else I did. And so I was like stoked. He's like, yeah, dude, I want to hire you here. I think we're going to have a position open in a few months. Like, yeah, come on, you're going to come work for Volcom. Like, come start hanging out over here with us. Like, come here on your lunch break and like hang out whenever. So I was like, yeah, dude, like, all right, I'm going to come next week. So like I emailed him and everything like, hey, what's up, man? Like went by like a week went by, no response, no response, no response. And I like got terrified because I was like ready to quit my job, go work at this new place, do things that are creatively fulfilling. And what ended up happening was I didn't know this, but he had got let go like the week after or like a few days after, like he emailed me, he got let go. And so someone hit me up probably like almost a year later saying like, hey, we have these things you did. We're going to put them in our line. We need to pay you for them. I was like, okay, cool. Like what happened to Ethan or what? And they were like, oh yeah, dude, he got fired. Like he got fired. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, so I ended up going over there, meeting with those guys, and then I still became friends with all of like their creative department over there, but like there wasn't a position open anymore. And so I was really bummed. And while this was happening, I just started to gather more and more clients for some reason. I think just through Tumblr, and through Tumblr, people started putting stuff on Pinterest. And so like one of the first things I got to do was like, I got to do stuff for Pearl. Like I got asked to do things for Pearl Jam and then Blink 182 and Fall Out Boy and like all these bands. And like then all these companies started coming around. People who worked with Urban Outfitters started hitting me up. So it was like weird. I was getting to a point where it's like, okay, this is like viable for me to do now. I think I can leave my job. Right. I'm pretty comfortable to do that. So like I got really lucky. Probably like a week before I was going to put in my 2 weeks notice, my boss comes into my office and tells me, hey, look, things aren't looking good. Some laws changed. There was like laws about advertising to kids and things like that. Like we're going to have to downsize. Like we're hoping not to, but we won't know till after Christmas. So like my plan was just like, I was going to quit right before Christmas and just have like a vacation for a couple months. But what ended up happening was they pulled me aside and like, hey, just like hang in there. We're going to find out what's going on after the new year. So I was like, okay, like I don't think they would tell me I'm going to get fired unless I'm going to get fired or like laid off or whatever. So I was like, okay. So I just stuck it out for a few weeks. And what ended up happening was I did get laid off and they gave me 6 months severance. So I was like, jackpot, like I have all this money now. I can kind of use it to like pursue my dreams. Oh, how'd that get in there? Okay. So yeah, from there, I just started working with bigger and bigger clients. Like I started working with Bruno Mars. I started working with these surf companies. I started working with Adidas and like Zoomies and all these places. Just doing, t-shirt graphics. And I was making a living kind of doing what I love to do. And yeah, it was just weird. It got to a point where it's like I can go into an Urban Outfitters or a Zoomies and there's clothes I made in there, like at all these stores at the same time. And then just like being able to work with bigger and bigger companies was just like amazing and a dream come true. Uh, so from there, I kind of just started focusing too on collaboration. Like there's stuff I did for Coachella and like different skate decks, like Billabong. There's a there's a pizza shop in San Diego that has like my art plastered all over it. But yeah, just working with different artists and being collaborative, that was always kind of the dream. So that's really what I focused on. Like I didn't really want to have a clothing line per se, because like I didn't feel like I wanted to buy clothes from the retailers that carried the clothes I made. So I like kind of stopped pursuing that when it wasn't going the way I wanted to. But yeah, it was like, I think like you guys need to realize too, this stuff happens like over years. So when you see someone that's doing well or whatever, you just kind of think like, oh, they just blew up or whatever. But it's like, it's a very long process. And I kind of think of it like you have to have what I would call like a surfer's mentality, where it's like you have to enjoy the process as much as the product. And so like surfers will go out and try and surf every day, like no matter what. So it's like, I don't think I've met a surfer that like got an amazing wave and just stopped, you know? So it's like you kind of have these waves and peaks and valleys in your career where it's like good things happen, things will slow down, and then like things will start to happen again. But like the thing that you guys need to do if like you want to pursue this career is just to keep doing it and like basically just keep surfing. Like surfers just keep surfing. So I think that's kind of how you should think of it, is like, I don't know anybody that surfs that like you can have like an amazing session or whatever and then go back and do it again the next day and keep trying. And that's kind of what it's like. It's like maybe some days you get no waves or whatever, but like you keep trying and you keep doing it because you love to do it. And so like if you want to pursue a career or there's something you're really passionate about, like I think that's something you need to think about, is like, hey, like sometimes this is going to suck. Sometimes I'm going to want to quit. But the point is to just keep doing it if you love doing it and you're passionate about it. Let's see. Okay, so from there, then I got offered a position doing like being an art director for a music venue. The venue was the Observatory, but they were doing these really big festivals at the time. So like they had like festivals being headlined by like Travis Scott and Kendrick Lamar, and like they were just doing all these really big festivals. And so they needed someone to kind of make the creative direction for the festival. So I was working with a bunch of different artists and then curating all the merchandise and everything. Like you could see photos of all these festivals here. They're pretty insane. Like the day and night one is like probably the craziest one. They just had like an amazing lineup of like all these like really good rappers, like Playboy Cardi and stuff were there. Like that was insane. And just like having and doing merch for that and like seeing all those people being like stoked on everything was like very rewarding. So from here, like I was doing this for a year or two. The venue ended up selling to Live Nation, so I kind of just moved on. And then I got offered a position creative directing for Scott Disick's brand Talentless, which is kind of like a luxury like leisure wear, like just like sweatpants and things like that are way too expensive. So I was working with him. I was creating all the clothes, like designing all the clothes, all the washes, everything like that. All the like the marketing directing photo shoots. And then we would do these like collaboration projects where we would have like Kim Kardashian or like Kylie and things like that. Like all these famous people wearing stuff that I made, which was like really cool. And the same thing here. There's like, I got to work with Blink-182. I made Mark Hoppus from Blink-182, the bass player. I made him like a custom bass that I painted. I did like a collection with Travis Barker, basically that he asked me to do. Like I didn't approach any of these people. I'm very lucky in that way. For some reason, it's just worked out for me. But like, I've never really asked to work with anybody aside from like, reaching out to Volcom that one time. So I'm not like, I don't know how I got lucky or whatever, but I'm very lucky on like that. In terms of that, like, I don't know how I did it, but it worked out for me for some reason, and I'm grateful for it. But like, I never could in a million years like figure out how that happened or like how to replicate that experience for anybody. But yeah, like we were doing all these things with like Kylie and Kendall and whoever, and it was like it was cool. It was fun, and like at the end or at the beginning of this year, I moved on from there, and I just kind of wanted to do my own thing again. It was very stressful. Like being a creative director and like in a position like that is very, very stressful and very like daunting. Like I was getting calls and text messages day and night, and like I have a family and everything, so it's hard to do that. But like I think you can find balance. Like you can, it's just, but sometimes you need to like know when to stop and when to say no to things. So yeah, like just to show you guys a timeline, this is me in 2002 with my buddies, and like we were all kids that like worshiped Blink 182. And then this is me in 2019, where like I'm handing off Mark from Blink, the bass player from Blink 182, a bass that I painted for him that he reached out to me to ask to paint for him. So that's 17 years. So like probably like it took like essentially from where you guys are like double the amount of time to get to that position. So it was like I've been kind of working towards that stuff for like 17 years, which is crazy to think about. And you just, if you like doing something, you just keep doing it. Like there's going to be a lot of stuff you don't want to do in between, or like I always kind of felt like, oh dude, I'm such a joke. Like I'm over here making Happy Meal toys. Like this is terrible. Like, and Happy Meal toys also are just like trash. You're just like making trash. Like 99% of Happy Meal toys end up in a landfill. So I was literally making trash, and I felt bad about myself for doing that. But I think I learned a lot from it. And like you really learn a lot about professionalism, just working in an office and things like that, and just being an adult. But it's a long process, and it's not easy, and you got to make some sacrifices. Like I said, like get a job you hate, because when you're doing something you like, you'll be a lot happier. And also like it'll force you into a situation where you kind of like you don't have a choice. You're like, well, I gotta, like what I'm doing is miserable, so I have to, like I have no choice but to succeed. It's like a lot of friends got tattoos so they wouldn't have to get real jobs, but then they did have to get real jobs. But like I had a lot of friends who got tattoos because they're like, yeah, well, I'm gonna have to like succeed in music. I'll never have to have like a bad job, because like no one will hire me because I have tattoos. And now it doesn't matter. You can have face tattoos, and that's cool. But like back then, it was like people were still weird about it. Yeah. So like, what I wanted to tell you guys too is just be open, explore creatively. Like, I always kind of in my career would like put people before projects. So it was like, oh, if I'm going to work with this person, like I want to know they're a decent person, or I vibe with them or whatever. And so there's times where I have done things that I didn't necessarily want to do just because I like the person. So I was like, oh, like I don't know if like my vibe fits with this brand, but because these people are so cool and they're friendly, like I'll work with them. And then it's like those opportunities lead to other opportunities. So like there's people I worked with at Adidas that have moved to different companies, or like that were at other companies and then moved to like a bigger place like Adidas or whatever. And like it just opens opportunities with these places. Like there was someone I worked with that used to do like band management, and I hated the bands and whatever, but I was good with them. And so they eventually moved up to like a better company. They were at like Quicksilver or something like that. And then I ended up like doing work for those people because like, this person knows me, they like my work, they like me. So that's something to be mindful of too in your career, is just like, you don't know where people are going to go. Like be respectful and cool to everybody, or as cool as you can be, you know, within reason. But like, you really never know where someone's going to end up, especially like when you're in creative fields. Like I have a lot of friends that were really scraping by, and they have like nice jobs doing like photography for like network and things like that. They're doing like a lot of really cool things, and it takes a long time to just, you know, get in one of those positions. But like if you're a good person, you're a nice person, I think people will remember that. Be like, if you're professional, people remember that, and you're punctual. Like I'm no one's a bigger slacker than me. I mean, like look at all my drawings. But like I think I've always kind of maintained professionalism throughout my career, and like just been respectful and not been any kind of like prima donna or anything like that, or like be a diva about anything. But I think people remember that. And in creative fields, you meet a lot of personalities, and there's a lot of egos and things like that. So when someone is like a good person, people remember that more so than people who are just kind of good at what they do, or good at one thing. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. If you guys have any questions like that for me, I'm happy to answer them. Or if you have questions about the career or art or anything like that, please let me know. I'm happy to talk about it with you guys.
Hey, Nick, that was cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Yell it out. What's the number one piece of advice you would give to somebody who wants to be an illustrator?
Okay, let me think about this for a sec. I would say,
Hello. What is it?
let me think. Okay, illustrating is a little different than graphic design. So I wanted to be an illustrator. I didn't know any better, so I just thought like graphic design was a blanket term that's like anything that like goes to print essentially. So like I wanted to be more of an illustrator, fine artist. Like you have one of the best programs here in Long Beach. If you can go to Cal State Long Beach for their illustration program or their fine art program, I would do that. Other than that, there's like Art Center and Otis, which are very good schools, but they're very expensive. You do tend to meet a lot of connections and things like that at these schools. So like for illustration, I would think about more of like a traditional school route if you can. But the number one most important thing to me is like have your own style, like develop a style that's unique to yourself. Be true to yourself in your work. Like I noticed a lot of people whose illustrations speak to me, like their drawings kind of look like them. And so it's coming from, I think, a place of authenticity. And so, I mean, and that's a weird thing to say, but like, I think, I mean, it kind of depends on what career you're looking to do. But I would say if you want to be like an illustrator and people know your work by your name, you should develop a style, like your own style. Like I see a lot of people, I know a lot of people who went to school to do work for like Disney and things like that. And so they're great at what they do, but everything they make looks like it's for Disney. And so if you want to make a name for yourself as an illustrator, like if you want to work for Disney, go to one of those schools and go like work for Disney and your work will be great. If you want somebody to know like you by your name, like your work by your name, make your like develop your own style. Like if you can't do something well, do it stylized was like something people always said. But yeah, if you can have your own style of illustration that looks very unique to yourself, I think that's the most important thing probably in like making a name for yourself as an illustrator.
Anybody else? Hands raised. What's your favorite project you've ever worked on, Nick?
My favorite project, I don't know, it's weird. Like, I think all my favorite projects are the projects I've been paid like the absolute least amount to do or not paid at all. So there's a couple that are really like personally meaningful to me. There was a band that was called The Replacements that was around in the 80s, like in, I don't know, when I was like, I kind of discovered them when I was like 19 or 20, and they were really important to me in growing up in like adulthood. So I got the opportunity to do a t-shirt design for them, but I had to like do it submission style. So it's like some like a merch company management, whoever will reach out to like 20 different artists and say, hey, we need submissions for merchandise for this band. So out of like all the 20 designers, all of whom I knew and were really, really talented people, I'm the only person who got a design approved by them. And it was for like their reunion show, which was like massive. So that was really important to me. I think I only made like a few $100 doing that. That was awesome though. And then another band who had broken up for a long time and reunited, their name was Lifetime. But they got back together and did a reunion, like some reunion shows. And I was able to do merchandise for them. And that was like really important and meaningful to me because when I was like, that was a band I listened to all through college and, you know, being like, just feeling very like, I felt very isolated in college because I was so focused on work. So like, that was a band I listened to a lot. And I was like, wow, like, I never in a million years thought I would have worked with this band. Like, they were broken up. Like, there was no idea that they would be back together or anything like that. And like, they got back together and the singer reached out to me to do work for them. Like, then not even like had no idea he knew who I was or anything, which that was amazing to me. But like, it's those projects like that like I think mean more to me, like being respected by people I respect or like I love creatively or whatever. Like that means as much to me. That means more to me than like money or like whatever. So it's like those kind of passion projects that really mean a lot to me.
Awesome.
Which mall did you work in the Hot Topic?
Which mall did you work at for Hot Topic?
I worked at two. So I know three. So I worked in Main Place in Santa Ana. I worked there because I lived down the street from there. And then the Hot Topic I worked at only sold music stuff. It was called like Hot Topic Rock. And they only sold music. Like they sold CDs and like records and merchandise. Or like band merchandise. So that closed, and then I had to work at the Block for a couple months. So while I was working at the Block, I got offered that web design job, and like I just stopped showing up to work. I didn't show up anymore. So I was on a date there, and like my boss ran out and gave me my last paycheck, and it was for like $12. So yeah, I worked there, and then I worked in Riverside for like a few months while I was kind of done with school, and I wanted a job to get out of the house, and like a job I hated also. So I did that.
So who is one of the most hardest people or celebrities you worked with, and how did you deal with that experience?
Hardest celebrity I've worked with? No celebrity, like every celebrity I've met is very nice. Like, I don't even like, it's no like every celebrity I've met and worked with is nice. Their managers though are like the headache. So working with people's managers, like managers are terrible people. Like don't grow up to be a manager. Like that's like the lowest person. Like they don't care about anybody. They don't like anybody. Logan Paul's manager was like one of I shouldn't even say that. Like I shouldn't have said that. But like yeah, that person was very difficult. But he was a very nice guy. And but it's just managers that are jerks.
They're all whispering, finish that sentence now.
Uh,
Don't do it.
no, I don't want to get in trouble.
Did you ever think of giving up?
Oh yeah, like I thought about giving up when I was six. When like I would what would when I was succeeding or what would be considered succeeding. You know, it's tough. Like I still think about giving up sometimes. I don't though. Like I think that's the thing. It's like this week even was just like hard for me. Like I've had a lot of projects going on, and I'm just like, oh, what am I doing this for? This is so dumb. Like the point is like if you at the end of the day, I'm passionate about it. So it's like I keep doing it.
Yeah. Hey, Nick, stop sharing your screen.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
Is that me? Am I on?
Hey, my AP students, do you recognize that artist on the right-hand side? It's that one guy. My AP students are looking at David Cook right now.
Oh, Dave Cook and Jay Howell.
Do you guys know who Jay Howell is? He designed all the characters for Bob's Burgers.
Sanjay and Craig too.
Oh, and Sanjay and Craig.
Yeah.
They go, oh, that. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, does anybody have any other questions for Mr. Guenzler? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
In that last slide, was that Elon Musk?
What?
In the last slide, was that Elon Musk?
No, which one?
In the last slide, it was the guy in the middle.
Oh no, I think it was David Beckham.
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
He kind of looks like Elon Musk, that's why.
Sorry. Yeah. Everybody's like, I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Oh, we got a couple people on both sides. Oh, go ahead. Hi, Jade.
What's a future company or celebrity you wish to work with in the future?
Someone I wish to work with in the future? I don't know. Like I really don't care about people. Like don't take that the wrong, but like I don't care about like somebody who's famous for being famous or anything like that. Like I don't know them as a person, so it doesn't connect with me in that way. Like I think that's kind of why I'm able to work with the people I do, is because I don't treat them like any different than I would a normal person. I don't care about who they are necessarily. Like I care more about what they do, and like that's what interests me. Like there's definitely bands and things like that that I'm interested in that I'd like to work with, but then there's also people like or bands. It's weird because when you know someone's work intimately, you kind of know like if you would fit with working with them or not. And so like I think two people like I really like, actually, their personalities and things like that. I'd love to do something with Jonah Hill and like Kerwin Frost, but I mean that's kind of it. Like I'm not really that into like celebrities or anything like that. I'm more into like if someone's work is good.
Cool. I saw somebody else on that side with their hand raised. Oh, okay. Got you next. Okay. Huh?
Do you have advice on animation?
No. Sorry?
Do you have any advice on animation?
For people who want to animate?
Animation? I mean, if you can, you'll have to go to school for it. Like, but if you can get an internship somewhere, like all these studios have internships available. Like I met with somebody, I was kind of considering moving into animation and switching my major. But like I kind of showed someone from Nickelodeon my character designs and they really liked them. And they were kind of interested in having me intern, but I couldn't I couldn't figure out like my school schedule and having to drive back and forth to Burbank every day. So if you go to school, I would say like go out somewhere out that way, so you're nearby. Like, yeah, get an internship somewhere though. Like that'll be your best bet.
I didn't know I had a mic down here. Hey, oh, that works, cool. Hey, somebody wants to know where your sweatshirt is from, or what it is.
My sweatshirt? It's Online Ceramics.
Dang it!
Yeah.
Online
I
Ceramics.
got it at, I think I got it at Dover Street.
Earlier, you mentioned working with Logan Paul. I just want to know what you did with him.
So I helped, he had his clothing line Maverick. And so like the umbrella company that I worked for with Scott Disick's brand also partnered with them. So I was kind of, they had like an external sort of creative director, but what I was doing is I would kind of generally oversee everything to make sure all the work was being done. And like I would offer them different ideas and what they would turn in. Like I would take their art and spin it a different way that I thought would sell better. So I was doing a lot of that. So I was working with Maverick.
Thank you.
If you were to talk to your high school self, what would you say? And if you were still in high school, where would you see yourself in 10 years?
I'm sorry, what was that? Where would I see myself in?
Yeah. If you were still a high school student, where would you see yourself in 10 years? Like when you were in high school?
And he said if you could go back and talk to your high school self, what would
Yeah, where I saw myself while I was in high school was pretty bleak, honestly. Like I thought like, okay, if I'm lucky, like I'll have a studio apartment, like a lot of dysfunctional relationships, maybe a cat. I'll get a cat at some point, and like I'll just work like a construction job or something like that. Like that was my like idea, and like I don't think it was till like later, when I was like 18 or something, I thought like, oh, maybe I could pursue art because I saw other people pursuing it. I mean, things have worked out for me. Like, I feel like I've made some mistakes, but not that many, or nothing like crazy. You know, everything I've done, I've kind of been true to myself. So, I would suggest just like kind of having like a larger, like a grander vision for yourself, knowing things are possible and like what your dreams are probably aren't hard. Like, you know, I don't know how many of you raise your hand if you want to be involved in art somehow for a career.
Raise your hand if you want to be involved in the arts for a career.
Yeah, so if you don't, that's fine. Like, but you can be passionate about other things. Like, I mean, like, just, I think you just like got to know that things are possible, and like what you probably want to achieve is achievable. And what else was I going to say? Something else. Just be persistent. Keep doing what you want to do.
No, that was me saying. He's still talking. So what you're saying is even if things feel bleak right now, they could get better probably.
Yeah, they will. For sure they will. You just got to stick it out. I mean, like, I was really depressed as a teenager. Like, I didn't comprehend that till I was an adult too. Like, I was very depressed for what, like, I just didn't sleep. Like, I don't think it's normal, like the hours I was operating on. So, like, just kind of recognizing that these things pass, like times get hard, and like there's like if I quit or did whatever, you know, like I wouldn't have done the things I got to do. So it's like, I think just know that there's something out there for you to do, even if you don't know what it is yet. It exists, and you will eventually get to that point where like everything clicks. I've seen it happen for so many people, you know, and you know, whatever kind of hard time you're going through, just stick it out. Like, things will get better.
Go ahead. Keep talking to it.
Is there any drawings that are incredibly hard to do, especially if those where mistakes could easily happen?
Sorry, what was the question?
No, I'm saying is there any drawings that are really hard to draw?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like honestly, like it's hard to sometimes I've noticed it's harder to do something easy than it is to do something difficult because what's easy has to look effortless if it's going to be easy and work. So like I can draw something like 100 times sometimes because my style is so simple, but it has to look right. And then I've drawn things that are like harder and it's easy because it's like you know where like where all the details are going to go and everything, like you know what it's going to be. So it's like in some ways drawing things that are easy for me personally is harder than drawing things that would seem hard or that seem like they took a long time.
They're asking to see your fit, and I'm freaked out.
Asking to see what?
Mr. Guenzler. Does anybody else have any questions?
My fit?
Yeah. Don't show them. Don't do it.
No. It's all very nice, expensive clothes though.
It's all very nice, expensive clothes.
I'm pretty dripped out, I'm not gonna lie.
All right. Does anybody have any other questions? All right. Give it up for Mr. Nick Guenzler. Thank you so much.
Okay. Everyone gets out of school early now.
Yay! Get out of here.